Okay, I think we'll get started. If you're coming from the GNL project, I encourage you to look at the introductory video for this playlist to see if this is the right course for you. All right, we're going to pick up the flow of the story now. We started the last lecture with this idea of induced currents, and then this will pull through what we'll address today, which is Lenz's law, and then this will lead then to Faraday's law next lecture. So we were left a little bit unsatisfied last lecture in that we talked about how a changing magnetic field can induce a current, but we didn't really see why. We did end up talking about how say a wire moving through a magnetic field will separate charge, and that will create this EMF or voltage that we can use. And then we even saw a case where we had this rod sliding along a rail to drive current. We talked about generators as well. Okay, so let's kind of pick up the next step here on this, and that is we need to introduce this idea of magnetic flux. So we're talking about the amount of field, or how much of the field is going through a wire loop here. And so I'm going to use this as a demonstration. Let's imagine we have this rectangular wire, and the red here is where the wire is. So if we have field going through the loop, that is the flux. And so flux is the field times the area. Now, it is an effective area. So let's imagine the field coming out. Well, let's go just straight this way. So if the field's going this way, and it's going through this whole front face, then we would have this whole area. However, if I turn the loop this way, and my field is going this way, then none of the field is going through the loop. Zero is. So if I turn it at a little bit of an angle, then some is. So that's this idea of an effective area. It's basically, if you were to look at, if you're shining a light in the direction of the magnetic field, and then you looked at the shadow this cast on the wall, the area of that shadow would be what we're talking about for the effective area. All right, so the symbol is this capital Phi, Greek letter Phi. SI units is a Weber. It's one of the rare SI units that has two letters, WB, and it's equal to a Tesla times meter squared. All right, well, this brings us to Lenz's law, and we'll just state the law here, and we'll see some of the consequences, and then we'll see how it rolls into Faraday's law next lecture. So Lenz's law states that the current induced in a circuit due to a changing magnetic field is directed to oppose the flux and to exert a mechanical force that opposes motion. Okay, so let's kind of see what that all means here. So let's imagine this loop, this wire loop here, and we're going to take a bar magnet right down the central axis, and we're just going to start to move it down this way. Now we know the field lines for a bar magnet come out and turn around. So far from the end of the north, our field lines are more spread out, meaning we have a less flux or less field there. And right near the north, we have more fields. So what is going through this loop then from this position, as it moves downward, is an increase in flux. The number of field lines going through the loop is increasing here. So the magnetic flux increases. And Lenz's law, how does that manifest itself? It manifests itself in a current, an induced current that we talked about last time, that opposes this motion. So in this particular case, this is coming down. What direction do we need to oppose this motion? We would like the north of this field, of the field induced by the current, to be opposing this north coming in. If it was south, then this would get drawn in faster. So let's look at the current then. We need north to be pointing up, so that means our current needs to be, by our right-hand rule, needs to be this way. So we have to be coming out of the board on this side, back into the board on that side, and that will induce this field that opposes the incoming flux. So the system is trying to maintain the flux through the loop that it had. So if this moves down just a little bit, the flux from the magnet increases, so then the current goes in the other direction to oppose that. Remember, magnetic field, superposition holds, so the total magnetic field will be the magnetic field from the bar magnet and the magnetic field from the induced current in the loop. Okay. All right. Now, okay, how does this play itself out in systems we've talked about already? Well, here's this U shape with the load over here. We've got this magnetic field going into the board, and we're pulling this at a constant rate here. So let's look. This was the thing that gave us a little bit of trouble with our intuition last time is, well, we're talking about a changing magnetic field, but the magnetic field is constant here. But what we're seeing here is a magnetic flux change, because as this slides along, the area is getting bigger. So the field is constant, but the area is getting bigger. And so the flux is increasing, and so we would oppose this motion, and that's exactly what we calculated last lecture with the example. We have this moving in this direction, we're going to get a counter force in that direction. So the magnetic force is pointing in this direction. And then we talked about loops, rotating loops in a field, like in a motor or a generator. And if we've got this constant field, and we were to, let's flick this loop so it starts to spin this way, right? As this goes down like this, as this would go down like this, we would get less effective area, so our area would decrease. So in these two examples, we're seeing a change in the area. In this first example, we're seeing an actual change in the field. So either of these two things can change in order to change the flux. So as this were to dip down, the flux is decreasing. We want to oppose motion, so we would get torque in the counterclockwise direction. Okay, well, let's just talk about a few cases here, and we'll use this as an example. So this is our loop again. And let's imagine, now I'm going to put this, let's imagine this whole room is bathed in this 2 Tesla field. Now, we take our dimensions, which I wrote up here, and we get an effective area like this. And so our flux here is going to be 2, right, from the 2 Tesla. That will remain the same there. And then our effective area, in this case, will be the full area. If I just stick this like this, it'll be the full area. So it would just be 0.034. And that will give us our total flux. Now, let me rotate this a little bit. Let me rotate it all the way like this, right? Then we're going to have 2 Tesla, but none of the fields actually go through the loop. So we're going to get 0, and so we would get 0 flux. Okay? Now let me go at, say, an angle where we're 30 degrees to the field. We're going to have 2. For 90 degrees to the field, we would get the full amount. But here we're going to go to, say, 30 degrees. So we would have sine theta, in this case, 30 degrees. Right? So less is coming through. If it was 60 degrees, more would come through. Right? 90 degrees, it all comes through. Okay, now let's do some slight changes to this. Let's imagine that let's imagine now I go 30 degrees this way and then this way. So I'm going to go down and this way. So then I would have, say, 2 times this times, say, sine 30. I came 30 degrees down this way, and let's say I also went, so I'm going to turn this way and I'm going to turn this way. So let me turn 30 degrees this way and down to 30 degrees and then down over to 60 degrees. So then I would have sine 30 times sine 60. Here. So this could be like this, Could be like this, or it could be some combination of those. All right, now let's imagine instead of the field being completely bathing this room, there's only a 10 centimeter slice right across the room like this. And then it's just 10 centimeters high. So if I stick my loop here, my effective area is not my full loop because I'm only 10 centimeters high, and here I'm 22 centimeters. So I would have something that looks like this. Right, and this is only 10 centimeters here. So my effective area would be, my area effective would be 15.4 because my width is fine, but I'm not getting it through my whole loop. So it'd be 15.4, 0.154 times 0.1. Meters cubed, or meters squared. So if we had something like that. Now, let's imagine twisting in this, right? Let's plot our effective area. Here we are like this. Now we're going to turn this down. This is 90 degrees, I guess. And here's 0 over here. So we'll actually stay flat for a while until we start to penetrate into that 10 centimeters. So we will hold the same effective area regardless of this angle. So we can't just blindly apply this formula. We have to be careful about where the field is. And so we would come in like this, and then we would follow the sign. So it isn't just an application of these blind formulas. You really have to think about where is the field, what is the loop, how is that loop oriented in that field, and then ultimately, how is that magnetic field moving through the loop. All right, so with that, we will stop here. There's more to go now here. The next lecture will be with Faraday's law, but in the meantime, try to work some problems or think about this, really tell yourself the story of this. The problems won't really come numerically so much until we get to Faraday's law, but here you really want to tell yourself the story of Lenz's law.